Hi, this is Brennan Davis from Bedrock Games and the Bedrock blog, and I'm just doing a quick podcast. I wanted to mention a couple of things we have going on this week, and I have a little idea I wanted to discuss about sort of movies in general, but more specifically things that you often see in Hong Kong action movies and martial arts films. But before I get to that, we have at the blog I posted up. There was a book I was working on called The Bloodstained Roads in the Martial World, and I decided to just go ahead and post it as in a three-part series. I was originally going to release it as a full book, and the pipeline is sort of backed up, and I just didn't want to have it, put it off for so long. And I also just thought it might be more interesting to do as blog entries. So I put up the first section. And I have some other sections I'll be putting up. The other sections are less complete because the first section is the one that was really pretty much done. And the other sections are, I'm going to work on them a bit and then I'll put them up in the blog. But they're like leaner. They were part of the appendix. This was going to be the meat was going to be about these encounters on the road. And so and who knows, I might make it a blog series. Maybe if every so often I'll come up with 10 new encounters, but basically it's a random table of 10 encounters / adventure hooks, and they vary in length and depth, and they're sort of meant as like a blueprint for this is how I envision random encounters occurring. So they're sort of the ideal I'm striving for when I'm working with my random encounter tables on the fly. Some of them are better examples than others. So the ones that get really deep, those are ones that are sort of like they reflect like me on a really good day when I'm doing stuff on the fly. And the ones that are a little bit less deep are me on a typical day, say. So that's sort of what the range that I was trying to get across. And just kind of giving people an idea of, how you can take a kernel and turn it into something more. And so hopefully people will enjoy it. It's up on the blog now, and there's an index page, and it links to different pages on the blog. I tried to do it as a single page, and it just was too hard to navigate. So I ended up doing it as individual posts with an index. And it can be confusing if you just land on one of the individual post pages, though it does redirect you back to the index. But the index is a nice, solid sort of navigational tool. So we also did a discussion of the film Yes, Madam, which is a Corey Yuen movie starring Michelle Yeoh and Cynthia Rothrock, and we had a pretty cool discussion. I was a little bit tired that night, so I don't feel that it was the I don't feel my overview of the plot was great, but I feel like we got really good discussion going, and a subject came up which it hadn't really. The way that we sort of do these discussions is they're just us talking, and so a lot of times we'll end up with kind of an interesting idea midway through towards the end. We'll start seeing things that just in the process of the conversation are brought to our attention. So one of the cool things about the way that we do the discussions there is people will change their minds over the course of the discussion. Somebody might say they might assert something, and then somebody will point out contrary. A contrary point of view, or just point out something about the story that maybe sort of undermines the point a person just made, and folks will sort of adjust as the conversation evolves, kind of like a real conversation about like a film you just saw, and so I think that it gets to some interesting places. And one thing that came up is sort of this idea of these one-note characters that you'll sometimes see. And I don't mean this is like a bad thing. Like in Hong Kong action movies, you'll sometimes have characters that they really kind of just do one thing really hard. And so in this film, you have a villain named Mr. Tin who laughs he has this really sort of powerful laugh that he does that's just constant, and it occurs at really times when characters normally wouldn't be laughing. It's just something that his character does all the time. But because the film is sort of divided into this, the first 3/4 of the movie are really sort of light popcorn fare, just kind of a almost cartoon like and the whole movie is kind of a little bit cartoon like in a lot of ways. But the first portion is very light in that respect. but then in the end, it takes a shift when one of the main characters dies, and a character who up until that point has really been kind of a sort of like a lovable loser type character who's the butt of a lot of jokes, and he's really just there for comedy more than anything else. He suddenly takes on a much more serious role, and I don't know, the tone of the film shifts into much darker territory. But the interesting thing is, you have all these characters who are essentially playing the same note throughout the movie. You have the guy that's doing the laugh. You have a guy with these really powerful eyebrows who also will sort of, just he's just sort of like larger than life, and always like super aggressive and just full of himself. And when the tone of the movie shifts, those notes take on different meaning. It's kind of like in music. Like if you have a drone note running through a whole song, you could have like, this one note that in the context of the other melody and harmonies being played, or the other notes being played, create, a certain sound. Like, maybe you're creating a C chord throughout, but then when things change, the meaning of that note changes. The note is more than just the one note that's being played. It's and I'm doing a horrible job. I apologize to all my music teachers, but the note is more than it's about the context that the note exists in. And with a lot of these one note characters, I think that's why you could criticize the movies, and you could say these are two-dimensional characters. They're not even two-dimensional. They're just one note. They don't do anything. There's no depth to them. But that's not the point in a lot of cases. You're not they're a note in a chord, and I think that's one of the things that makes those characters so marvelous. And again, when the other notes shift, that note is still potentially important. And so I don't know, I'm probably doing a horrible job with this metaphor, but it just kind of occurred to me today when I was thinking about our conversation. It came up during the conversation last night, and I'm probably not doing justice to the topic because I'm sort of out of my league here in the with what I'm talking about. But I don't know. I thought it was kind of an interesting idea, and it was something that I think we really saw in that Mr. Tin character in the Yes Madam movie, because the laugh initially, it's kind of amusing. It's sort of something that's funny throughout the whole thing, but then by the end, there's almost a desperation underneath it. There's something much more terrifying about the laugh, even though he's sort of just been laughing ridiculously throughout the whole movie. And so I don't know. I just thought it was kind of it was interesting to see opinions about the movie sort of shift over the course of the conversation, and maybe opinions about the kind of movie it was. So I don't know, but this is again, this is one of the reasons why I like these kind of films. And I'm no expert. I'm just a fan. But you just sort of notice things like this with them, and think features of these movies that sometimes seem ridiculous, or sometimes don't seem like they have I don't know, that if you were talking about another kind of movie you might describe as a flaw, they're kind of a strength of these films, and it allows them to do things that I think you couldn't do. If you didn't sort of, if they weren't able to embrace a character like Mr. Tin and that just incessant laugh, and that just have him constantly sort of just going back to that one feature of the character, it wouldn't have that effect over the course of the movie. He they could have created a much deeper villain with more backstory and more personality traits, but I think he would have been more bland. But the character that you see on the movie is the opposite of bland. And again, when you account for like the role he plays as the tone of the movie changes, I don't know. I just think it's just an interesting thought. So, anyways, you can check out our Yes Madam discussion at the Bedrock podcast, which we'll obviously you're here. So just go and check our backlog of episodes. And if you're following this on the Bedrock blog page, though, I will try to link to that. Um, and also, if you don't know, you can just click on the title on the embedded player if you are watching this on the Bedrock blog podcast, and it'll take you there. So the two things that I was just trying to draw people's attention to was the Yes Madam discussion that we had last night. We have one every Friday, and again, these are not professional. These are very sort of, we're just sort of chatting, having fun. We'll sometimes we'll go through the movie point by point. Sometimes we'll just sort of have a roundtable discussion. It sort of depends on what we want to do, uh, and we just hit record. And there's no editing on these podcasts, as you can probably tell from the one you're listening to. I just kind of hit record and keep going, and the same with our session recordings that we do. We have a number of session recordings that are up, and I kind of like to just sort of put things up warts and all. So like if we have a bad session, I like to keep it up. If there's a little bit of an argument during a session, that's fine. We leave it up. It's intended to sort of one reason why I do things this way is just personal. I don't want to feel like I'm having to adjust my own personality because of a need to sort of present myself as a particular way online. But also I just think it's more interesting. I like shows where you see the mistakes and where things don't feel heavily scripted. So that's sort of what we're going here. And yeah, so again, you can check out the Yes Madam discussion, and you can check out all of our session recordings that we have. I have the Son of Lady 87s, and I have the Disposable Disciples sessions, and we have a lot of other things going on. Me and Adam are going to be doing a discussion on the Return of Condor Heroes television series from 2006. And this Monday, I'm going to do a special episode where it doesn't have a name yet, so I won't tell you too much about it, but it's going to be about design, and it's going to be a special co-host that I'm bringing on. And we also have the Game Lab that we do once a month. And so there's a lot going on here, and I appreciate all the people who have been listening. I noticed that we've been getting more followers. Again, we're all over the map in terms of what we cover and how on point we are on a given day. So just stick around, and hopefully you'll find things that you like here. And yeah, and also give me feedback if you have thoughts, if you have questions, if you want us to review a particular movie or talk about a particular movie, we'll consider it. There's a movie that somebody asked me to request, and I have not forgotten to do a review of that movie. That movie is on my table in the living room, and I will be reviewing it. It's a film I haven't seen, though a lot of other people have seen it, and I'm looking forward to doing a review. I just wanted to make sure that when I do the review, it's a time when I'm not sort of like exhausted from doing other podcasts or not fitting it in between things. I wanna give it its due. So I will make a point of getting to that if you've been waiting for that. And again, send us your questions, your thoughts, your comments, and I will generally announce our Friday movie sometime during the week. And so next week we're doing New Dragon Inn, and I encourage people to check out the movies beforehand and join us in the discussion. It's not like it's done live and you can call in or anything, but you can listen in and you can comment, and you can go to the if you see us on Twitter, you can comment on the Twitter link when I post it. I don't know, maybe one of these days we'll figure out how to do a call-in feature. I know people that do the call-in thing, and if I could find a way to do it, I'd love to. But I don't. We record them on Skype, and Skype is very. If you bring in another caller or what, you can have all kinds of problems with the recording. So we've discovered this the hard way. So yeah. So anyways, I've been talking for too long. I have to get to my game, but I have a Saturday session today, so I want to get to that. But I did want to just get on and kind of talk about this subject, and I again, I apologize if I'm a little bit groggy. I've sort of I had the podcast last night, and I have a game today, and I have another game tomorrow, and so I'm just sort of a little bit between things right now. So I will talk to you later, and until then, have a great day.